Hey there, everybody. Mandy and Kara's here, and we are doing something a little bit new, coming to you live on a new platform through Facebook. So it may be a little bit glitchy, but just hang on. You know that we always have some glitches. I think it kind of makes it funny with us. So anyway, we are the Purposeful Woman podcast, and today we are going to be talking about finding joy in the midst of the storm, or finding joy in the midst of your Christmas, New Year, holiday chaos. So I think all of us need to hear this. So we are going to share this out to our Purposeful Woman group, yet also to Amanda Middleton like page, to Karis's page, excuse me. So you will have lots of places to be able to watch and see. And if you'd like to join the Purposeful Woman group, please do on Facebook. We would love to have you there. We give more tips and all that kind of stuff. We are talking every week about something different. So just pop in there, say hello. We will share the link at the end of this broadcast too. So if you are watching the replay, make sure that you comment and tell us how you're doing. Tell us how we're doing. I don't know if you wanted to. We are going to have some technical difficulties. I just feel it because that's just who we are. And Chris and Brandon, our husbands, laugh about it every time. Actually, I think I see Brandon on here, so he's probably already laughing. But
yes.
Yeah. So anyway, but thank y'all so much for being here and for the support. And so we're going to get started.
Yes. All right. I mean, finding joy during this time of year, it can be stressful, right? I mean, do y'all have a lot going on right now, Mandy?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no. I think I've learned how to say the word no a lot these days. So, yeah, no. It just kind of, you know, and with my heart condition, I think we've learned the word no well. So, you know, there's only so much that we can do. But, yeah, it gets stressful because you're trying to make everybody happy in the process. And that's just not humanly possible. We all know that. So, yeah, it gets stressful. Yeah. And it robs joy, for sure.
Yeah. I think one thing that I've been trying to learn, especially over the last couple of years and just coming even out of that dark period of my life, I always thought of joy more as a verb, right? Instead of, it's really a noun. Joy is really a thing. So it's something that you have to choose, you have to walk in. And I think I always would put joy and happiness together. And if I didn't feel happy, then I didn't have joy. And that's really not true. You know, I've just been learning in my life that even if you're going through a hard time and you're going through a hard season, joy is there. It's right there with you. It may not feel as strong. I was even reading in scripture today about in John, how you may be going through a time of grief, maybe going through a hard time right now, but no one can steal your joy. It's still there. And maybe you're feeling like, where is it? I mean, it may be like this big right now, but it's there. There's joy there. And that's one thing that I've been having to learn is that it's not a verb. It is a noun. It is a thing in your life that you can take hold of, that you can apply into your life. And what a great thing to know that I can have joy even if I'm having a bad day, even if I yell at my whole family. We have a new puppy and I yelled at everyone today. I can still have joy. They may not be doing what I want them to do, but I can still have joy in the midst of my circumstances. And I think that's one thing, you know, as we do this podcast today and as we talk to you guys live, I think we all want to have joy in the midst of our circumstances, but sometimes we struggle with how do I have joy? How do I have that thing in my life so that I can push through those circumstances, even though they're hard and they're kind of crappy, they're kind of stinky? How do I do that?
Right. And I think it's got to be nurtured. Like you were just kind of saying, you know, you've got to, you know, once you feel something creeping up, I mean, you've got to nurture and get the joy back. And I know as you're sitting here listening to us, you're saying, that's easier said than done. And it really is. It's
Yeah.
easier said than done because Karis and I go through it too. I mean, you know, right now, my joys, you know, could be completely robbed, and at days it is. And with the season that we're going through right now with my heart condition, and easily, you know, I could just sit and pout. And I do, don't get me wrong, I'm human and we do, but I have to really be mindful and nurture it and be like, I've got to get my joy back. The other day is actually kind of funny. I don't know if y'all watch TD Jakes or anything like that, but somebody had sent this video to my husband. It was like, you know, just watch it. This was so good. So, of course, Chris sent it to me. And I really can't tell you what the whole sermon was about, but we got like this little section of it that has just helped our family so much. And he said, he kept saying, do not worry. And I was like, it's so much easier said than done. Worrying is, you know, worry is the number one thing that can rob your joy completely. Because if you're worrying about something, you have no joy with anything because your whole brain is consumed with what you're worried about.
Right.
And so now, of course, the kids, you know, if you haven't seen TD Jakes, he gets very excited, you know, very excited, which gets all of us very excited. And the kids are watching and they're like, oh my goodness, I don't know if he's crazy or if okay, I like him. You know, it kind of took a little bit of convincing. And so as they're watching, he kept saying, do not worry. And he said, say it with me, repeat it. Do not worry about money. Do not worry about people. Do not worry about, you know, this and all these things. And so now, whenever our joy is starting to creep in, my kids will say, they'll catch us and go, do not worry about, you know, whatever we're worried about or whatever they can kind of feel the tension with. So it's kind of, you know, it was kind of funny, but now we look at it and we're like, you know what? Our joy was totally and completely being robbed with worry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we knew it to an extent, but didn't know how much until our kids started really speaking to us and telling us, you know,
Right.
Because they'll catch it. They'll catch it before we do. I mean, they were in the back seat the other day and Chris and I were talking about something. And they were like, do not worry about, you know, whatever it was. And they caught it before me and Chris even did.
Wow.
They knew it. So it's like, you know, God's telling us and through our kids.
Yeah.
He probably tells you through your kids too. And I know he talks to you through your kids as well, to you and Brandon.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just so neat. I mean, you know, he tells us, come to him like little children. I mean, they hear it and they grab it and they receive it. Like they don't try to make it so complicated. Like it in their head, do not worry. I mean, it's just that easy. And I think sometimes we try to make it too difficult, right? Try to find joy instead of stopping and realizing that it is that easy. Like it isn't, you know, it's hard sometimes to take the action steps, but it's truly just do not worry. And choosing to think differently. Like Allie Grace, my youngest, she is 5, and sometimes she will have bad dreams at night, or she will come out of her room and say, "Mommy, she'll say, I chose to have a bad thought." And I'm like, okay, so let's choose to have a good thought and think on those things going to sleep, right? To help her learn to go to sleep. And she's like, okay, you know, it's just that easy. So I think, you know, part of us trying to find joy in this time of year is to stop trying to make it so hard and just let it be easy. Let it be, you know, part of our life, part of our process. I was listening to, and I talked to you about this last night when we were talking about joy. Shonda Pierce, I love her. She's hilarious. But she was talking about this very thing about having joy. And I thought that was so cool that she was talking about this, and we had planned to talk about this today. And she was talking about how for her and her life and all of her struggles, that it's really hard this time of year, and that she has to be strategic in her journey. She has to plan her life around this time of year, and she has to be very, very specific. Like she was talking about, she's very strategic in what kind of music she listens to, and what Christmas movies that she watches, or just different things in her environment right now, because she knows what her triggers are. Right? We've talked about that with you guys before. She knows what's going to trigger her to maybe go into a depressed or sad moment. So she chooses to stay away from those things, and then she chooses to put things into her life that she knows will bring her joy, will keep her in that joyful mindset. And I thought that's really good to be. I never really thought about that. Just like you have to be strategic and on purpose in anything that you
Right.
have. If you stop and think about that for a minute, if we want to live in a joyful state, we do have to be strategic and plan like that. If we are just letting our life get full of chaos, or we talked about community last week. If we're not around our community, we're alone, then we are opening the door for the joy to be, robbed and pushed down and slowly but surely taken.
Right. Right. Well, and, I know that y'all may be watching and saying that so much easier said than done. And it is, again, like I said earlier, and you've got to really be mindful of it. And some days we let the best, let it get the best of us. Yeah. We are human, but we're made to also, we need to start over and not just mully grub in it. That's a Southern saying for sure.
Yeah.
But, and during this time of year, there are certain things, well, in all times of the year, but there are certain things that you can't help. You may work in an environment that's very negative, or you may, have family that's very negative or something. Like to that extent, you can't get rid of your family, and you don't want to, but you've got to figure out where the joy is in that process, and how you can keep the joy within yourself, because joy doesn't really come from others. Joy doesn't come from, happiness doesn't come from others. It comes from God and the peace that He gives you in the process. And that's another thing. You've got to talk to Him about it, because, like I said before, it's so easy for me to have my joy robbed right now.
Right.
And my kids and my husband's joy too, because they're, again, that word worry. They're worried about mama. They're worried about their wife, with a heart condition. But, Chris and I, even the other day, were like, our joy is being robbed because we're constantly worried about this. How can we flip this around? And the first thing you have to do is you got to start talking to God.
Yeah.
And telling Him and being like, okay, what do I need to do? Where do I need to go? Because He's going to give you that first step, and He's going to show you. I was even talking to a small group of ladies, the Purposeful Woman here in Loxley. We were talking about just little miracles that happen within the big ones.
Right.
And we look back on it and we're like, what? That was a miracle that God created, but He reminds us at the right time. And just like with joy, He reminds you that your kids are your joy.
Yeah.
Or this that you're doing right here is your joy, or, embrace that. So first and foremost, you got to go to Him about it, because if you just cover it up and act like it's not there, He knows it's there. He knows it bothers you.
Yeah.
And it's not going to go away until you ask Him.
Yeah. You got to talk to Him. I was just sitting here thinking, and maybe because it's Christmas and this time of year, I think about Mary and Joseph. And I think about their situation. Here they are. She's about to have the Savior of the world. And they all alone. And she's having to ride on a donkey through the desert. And y'all, if you've been pregnant, just imagine having to ride on a donkey.
Just imagine riding on a donkey anyway.
But to get ready, you're about to have a baby, and here you are on an animal, and there's nowhere for you. Your family and your friends have all, said forget you, and here you are about to have a baby surrounded by animals. That's who is there. And, in the midst of their circumstance, they had to trust. They had to trust God. And I'm sure they thought, why on earth would he choose me? But as my kids said, as we've talked about this story, that was God's special plan for them. It was
Right.
his special plan for them. And even though it was, I think a lot of times we look at our life and we think if the circumstances and everything is not going all hunky-dory, that we're not where God wants us to be. But in reality, he's right there with us. I mean, he told us that in this world we would have trouble. Like, he prepared us for that. But then he said, that he's overcome. So in the middle of all of that, they had joy. And here this little miracle is born. It's born. And I can just imagine, that probably shifted their whole perspective. And so I think, that's another thing for us in our life and our circumstance. Instead of thinking we're failing, and that sometimes will take away our joy because everything's not going hunky-dory, to just think, I'm trusting. I'm going to trust God, even though this situation stinks right now, and it is not what I want, and I don't understand. I'm going to choose to trust, and in trusting, you're taking the control out of your hands, and you're letting who needs to be in control, which is God. And in that, you're sitting in the role that you're supposed to be in, which is the co-pilot. He's the pilot. So you're in your role. Then you can have joy.
We still forget that some days, don't we?
Yeah,
we think the pilot.
That's not my role. And sometimes when we try to take on the role that we're not supposed to have, that's why we don't have, that's why we can't have joy. We can't have that in our life because we're trying to do things we're not supposed to do. We're not meant to do. And so when he's piloting, and we can kind of step back, and then that opens the door to let joy come in and surround us. And another way that we can be strategic in that, and we've talked about this, I don't know how many of our podcasts that we've done, writing down some of your favorite scripture, writing down things that you've heard that encourages you. And I found a couple that I'll share here in a minute about joy. I have this little book my mom gave to me when I was probably in junior high school, and I still have it, but it was a God's Promises book. And it has scripture for every different thing that you may go through in your life. And it has them all, in these little sections. And so I can flip through that and say, okay, this is what God's word says about this situation. And put it around you. We know that may sound crazy. We know you're thinking sticky notes around my house or in my car or on my mirror. But it shifts your perspective. It stops you from worrying. It stops you from being in the pilot seat, and it puts you in that co-pilot seat, and you can breathe and say, okay, I don't have to be in control. I can just trust. I can just trust if I'm riding on a donkey through the desert, God is in control, and he is going to deliver a miracle in this situation through my life. And I can trust him and know that.
And that's what it's about, is trust and choice.
Yes.
You got to make the choice to trust. And then once you trust God to give you that direction, everything that you will find joy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, whenever you let God out of your situation. And I know we talked about this before. We talk about all these things. All of these things kind of go into each podcast and each group and stuff. But, we've talked about this before. You have to, like Karis was saying, you got to let him be the pilot, because if not, things are going to go kind of haywire. Yeah. And he may go haywire whenever he's the pilot, but to you, but not to him.
Right.
They're going to end up the right way, the way that he meant it to be. And that's the thing. Joy equals trust. Trust equals joy. I mean, you've got to trust. You've got to know that what he's doing in your life is the best thing for you. And that's hard to let go of the controls.
Oh, I'm a control freak.
I think all of us women are, to an extent. I mean, it's hard to let go of the controls, but if you're mindful of it and you say, okay, I'm taking over too much. I can't do this. My joy is being robbed. I want to make a better choice. And that's what this world's about, is choices. And he gave us the mind for choices.
Yeah.
And we say this over and over again. We're not here to have this hunky-dory life. It is going to stink some days, but you can find joy in the midst of every single storm.
Right.
You know, I have to say, I know I bring this up a lot, but with my heart condition, that's what's going on in my world right now. And I believe that that's a testimony in itself. But I could sit around every single day and not do this podcast or not do our small groups at church or do the extra things at the Purposeful Woman, you know, or whatever else I'm doing with my kids or whatever. I could choose to not do that. But I can tell you right now, I'd be the most miserable person because I'm not doing what God called me to do. When you do what God calls you to do, when you actually ask him, what are you asking me to do? And you do it,
right,
that's where you find your joy too.
Yeah.
And you start realizing he does need me. He needs me in this world.
Yeah.
This world may stink, but I'm not of this world. I'm of him, and I can find the joy in it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. As you were talking, I was just looking back through a couple of these scriptures that I pulled up, and one of them is Philemon 1:7. Your love has given me great joy and encouragement because you, brother, have refreshed the hearts of the Lord's people. I mean, and that's exactly what you're talking about. And that's one thing I know, and many times where I've struggled in my life and I've wondered, you know, where are you, joy? Where are you, God? Right? That in the middle of that struggle, if I use it to help other people, if I turn my perspective off of what I'm going through, like you're saying, and I shift that perspective and I'd say, who can I help? How can God use me to help someone else? I find myself in a state of joy, and I'm like, there it is. There it is. It's right there. It's been there, but I had to shift my perspective, and it helps me to see that I'm not alone in my struggle. You know, other people are there too. So that shows me that again, God made us to have community, and we need each other. We need to build up each other in the body of Christ. So that may be something also that you could look at. And it's hard, y'all. It is so hard when you're in the middle of a struggle and you are in a dark place. Honestly, the last thing in your head and in your heart is to help somebody else. I mean, it is.
Because you want to help yourself, and that's normal.
Yes. But it's denying your flesh and saying, I want to help somebody else. I know how I feel. They probably feel the same way. I want to help them. And I promise you, maybe as you're saying there, you would agree with this too. It will change you. It will begin to do some. It's like a healing within your heart, within your mind, as you shift your perspective, and then God begins to warm you up, and you begin to see how there's joy in helping others, how there's joy in building your community around you, and loving on them and pouring into other people, even when you may not feel like it, but doing it anyway.
Saying you have to go, somebody behind you's having fun. I hear them laughing.
Yeah, they are. They have a lot of joy right now.
They're having a lot of joy. I mean, we're not saying you've got to go and shout it off from the rooftop and you've got to go get a microphone and talk. Yeah, we're talking like, you know, those small things throughout the day. It's not even anything huge that you have to do.
Right.
Wake up and say, God, where can I find my joy today? How can I help somebody else too? That's what we're created to do. I mean, is to help others. And, you know, we're made to be joyful. We're made to be peaceful. But I think some of us just forget it, myself included some days. And that's why you have to take it one day, one day at a time. I mean, we talk about that all the time. Take it minute by minute if you have to, hour by hour, day by day. Okay, that was a crummy 15 minutes. Let's start this over again and let's figure out how to make it better.
Yeah.
You know, and all of this is so much easier said than done. I know I've said that 3 times now. It is.
Yes.
But anything worth working for is going to be hard. And to find joy, and once you get there, it's going to become a habit.
Habit. Yeah.
I mean, it really does. And you can get out of the habit, but you're just going to have to find it again and really just work at it. Just like anything else. And during this season, I get it. You're trying to make everybody happy. You're trying to do what you have to do for others. You're trying to get presents. You're trying to bake everything. Don't get me wrong. The other day, I about blew my top because I was thinking about all the stuff that I haven't done. And then I had to sit back and say, you know what? This year is going to be different. Mama's got a heart condition. Things are going to be a little bit different. That doesn't make it bad. It just makes it different. Right. And we need to find the joy in what we've been given. Find the joy in knowing that Mom's going to be here with us this year. Right. Find the joy in God gave me, life, and He's given all of our loved ones around us life. That right there, just, I don't know. It seems so cliche and so, people say that all the time, but it really is. You got to find joy in the little. Well, that's not a little thing. That's a big thing.
Big thing.
Yeah,
it is, and it. As I hear you talking, I hear you saying it's like you have to practice it. Right. We have to get into that daily practice. And as I tell my kids with activities that they do, and even I have to say it to myself, practice makes us better. It does not make us perfect, but it will make you better. And the more you practice finding the joy where as stay-at-home moms, finding the joy in that moment, finding the joy, with our kids or with our marriage or within your job where you are, there's joy there. But we just have to shift that perspective and practice day by day, second by second, minute by minute, finding it. We will not be perfect at it, but the more we practice it, the more we choose to change that perspective and look to God, the God of hope, and know that there's joy there, we'll start to see it. We'll see it, like you're saying, in little ways and in big ways. But we're going to have to choose to trust, choose to practice doing it, and then choose to just go in faith that it's going to be there, and we can continue to get better at it.
And you may, especially during this time of year, need to get an accountability partner. That's where that community comes in, because we can all get really overwhelmed, especially this time of year, because there's so much going on. Like I said a second ago, there's lots going on. You're trying to make everybody happy, trying to get gifts, trying to bake, you're trying to do, make the food or whatever.
Right.
Those things in hindsight, they really don't matter. And I have to remind myself of that all the time. The things around us really don't matter,
Yeah. And I would say even this to the community part, if you know someone, if you have a friend or someone in your family, and you know that this time of year, this year is different for them, that it's not a good situation, that they're in a bad place or things have gone on in the last year, reach out to them. Don't wait for them to reach out to you to say, hey, pray for me. Just reach out and just say, hey, I was thinking about you and wanted you to know we're praying for you. We love you. Or just give them an encouraging word, because they may not reach out. They may be struggling with the right words to say. And so don't wait for the invitation to encourage them. Just encourage them, because they need it. Somebody around you today, they need some encouragement, and God could be waiting to use you to pour into them and into their life this time.
Yeah, and that could be a whole nother podcast in itself. And I know that we've done stuff about encouragement, but Karis and I wouldn't be here. And I know that sounds very dramatic, but we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for encouragement.
Right.
And those little bits of encouragement that you get from people, that they don't give it out all the time, and it's just, they just throw it at you at, just the weirdest times, and you're like, wow, she really meant that, and ooh, that feels really good, because that it's genuine. You need encouragement. So, but totally different podcast, but yeah, community. You need community. You need somebody to tell you too, your joy's been robbed. We need to get you back on track, sister. And you need to stop with that, this and that, and woe is me. And we gotta get you back on track.
Yeah.
And that's basically what the Purposeful Woman was created for, was all of us women to come in, talk about things, get encouragement, and help each other find our joy again. Yeah. Help each other overcome to find that joy again.
Yeah.
Since we're live today, we haven't been live in a long time, so I'm going to read some of these comments. Ooh, y'all been commenting. I like that. I like it. Miss Paula says, oh my goodness, I'm just sitting here thinking of thousands of things and feeling overwhelmed. Then I find this to remind me to keep my focus on Jesus. Y'all are right on time. You were talking about small miracles. I've been thinking about, Sydney. Sydney had, in one of my Purposeful Woman groups, she had like a praise report last week. It was absolutely amazing. And she was talking about the small miracles, or the things that she thought was small, but they're huge to God. And she kept naming off all of these miracles, and she'd say, but God came through, and then another one, but God. And so now it is everything, but God, he can do all things, no matter what you're going through. And then Paula says, God's Promises book is awesome.
Really good.
Tina, I'm so glad that you responded. Tina's little boy right now is in the hospital, and that is somebody who I have been meaning to reach out to for a couple of days now. And I'm so glad that you wrote. She said, God is using me here in the hospital. That gives me great joy, even though we're facing our own struggle here. Seriously, put that again. God is using me here in the hospital. That gives me great joy, even though we're facing our own struggle here. And, I can kind of see where Tina's coming from, because even those 8 days that I stayed in the hospital, the only joy that I had was knowing that God was going to make a testimony out of that. God was going to bring me out on the other side. And that in itself gave me something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Something, knowing that I wasn't just sitting in that hospital room for 8 days and making no headway for myself or anybody else. Chris and I, we use that time to really rest in God. We use that time to really think and slow down. And we use that time to realize that, hey, we're facing a huge struggle here, but I'm going to find the joy in it. And we're friends with nurses now. We're friends with a doctor now, where, just because we just sat there and we could have done nothing, but we kept going. So you got to find the joy in the midst of the storm. Miss Tina, that I'm proud of you, because I know that that's a hard thing to do right now. So yeah, thank y'all so much for joining us today. We kind of ran over a little bit, but I think we were a little bit excited that we were live again today. As we mentioned last week, the Purposeful Woman could be coming to a town near you. If you are looking for creating a small group at your church or in your community that helps women, pulls women together, give us a shout out, private message us, and we can let you know how to get the Purposeful Woman into your community. In the meantime, join our group, and we can't wait to see you there. And lots of new stuff is coming in 2018, so be sure to stay tuned. So thank y'all for allowing us into your lives today. Hopefully we helped a little bit, at least, to show you that others are going through the same thing and you're not alone. So until next time, we'll see y'all then.
Bye, guys.